Hello everyone and welcome to the Pitskill.io Porsche Cup and BMW M2 Multiclass here at a very rainy Kyalami as we get ready to start round 8 of the series, and our Porsche Cups are taking to the track to get this qualifying session underway. And while they complete their outlaps, let's take the opportunity to have a look at our standings. There is Joe Wilson leading the way on 422 points, ahead of Matthew Parry and Johan Leff. All three of those in contention for the win of the series this season. And then behind, fighting out over 4 position, we have got Jens Nielsen, John Sawyer and Jerome Eckhart. With Balazs Fahir, Sam McCarthy, Ben Konjarovic and Felinez Nitro rounding out the top 10. And as we come around final few corners, it will be Joe Wilson who will take us on to our first flying lap of this Kyalami circuit as we get this qualifying session truly underway. And the drivers have only 8 minutes to get their eye in, get themselves used to these conditions, these very tricky, wet and slidey conditions here at Kyalami. And slightly tentative on the approach into the first corner. You can see fast hands there from Joe Wilson, working away at the wheel, trying to keep this beast of a car with no traction control pointing in the right direction as we head down into tricky sequence of corners, especially in these conditions. And still liberal use of the curbs by Joe Wilson. And down through into the chicane. This is going to be one I suspect will catch out drivers in these conditions. Very easy to just get on the throttle a little bit too early and spin up the rears. As we descend the hill down into the third sector of this racetrack, into Crocodile, looking reasonably neat and tidy for a opening lap here by Joe Wilson. He needs to make sure he avoids the Kyalami salami as he turns it in. A little kiss at the curb on the way through and into the final corner, and we will have our first timed lap up on the board. As Joe Wilson bolts it for the line, it is a 1:47.832. A good strong opener there from Joe Wilson, circling up, crossing the line just behind with 1:50.382 as Matthew Parry goes fast in the session so far with 490, setting the pace so far. One of our 3 championship contenders. As I do not see a Johan Leff in the order, it will be just Parry and Wilson fighting it out, at least in the championships now. In P3, we have got our series sponsor, Chris Wright, Mr. SimQuips himself, with a 1:49.6, some 2 seconds off the pace, really showing the drivers who are prepared this evening. I suspect we will see those times come down, those drivers P3 and down, as they get used to these conditions. And returning after a couple of race absence, Maya Van Dijk in the BWT livery car, getting exceptionally sideways and looking to improve on their best time. So across the board, we're getting green lap times, green sectors, as people are finding the pace. As I think that's, I'm not sure who that is, just ahead of Van Dijk. But someone getting very sideways. That Florent D'Amour? Yes, it was. The Love Racing car P6 at the moment. Currently well up on their previous best time. See them jump considerably up the order as Joe Wilson. That's the new fastest lap time. We're 1:47.2. And Matthew Parry just going on to another lap as well. Looking at, it's taken P3 away from Chris Wright as our camera tries to find Polish driver running the number 666 car. And Martin Coy for this race running a new livery in the Mad Panda Motor Esports team. Yeah, RK9 livery there. Make sure this gets plenty of airtime. It looks like he's already damaged the front of it. Might be missing that, but it looks like that splitter has seen better conditions. There's Martin Coy looking to put a time on the board as we look to see who is improving. It seems that battle for P3 hotting up with both Eckhard and Partes putting themselves ahead of Klinger as Eckhard and those drivers fighting over P4 in the championship. Setting some good pace, going faster on this lap. There's Jens Nielsen. It's up into P3 with 1:48.695. You see the real difference in pace here though between the top two and everyone else. Next nearest 1.4 seconds off the ultimate pace in this session. Up. From P3 downwards it is exceptionally close, so we should have some good battling up and down the order in tonight's race. As Eckhard, final two corners to go now on what's looking to be a good lap from the German driver. They throw it in to the final corner of this racetrack. Throttle pinned to the line, and it is a improvement up to P4 with 1:48.7, just 7 thousandths of a second off of Nielsen. I think that gap is going to open up considerably more as Nielsen closing off their third lap of this session and going faster still. We'll have a couple of laps left to continue to learn these conditions, learn where the grip is on this racetrack. And keep on pushing as it looks like our top two may have hit their limit. There's both Matthew Parry and Joe Wilson currently off of their absolute best. As Jens Wilson getting very, very sideways, and I think that's going to put this lap to rest. As they have just one corner to go and will not be improving on this one. So around, get themselves composed, get themselves back out and onto what will likely be their final flyer of the session. Chris Wright currently down in P9, just 0.2 of a second off of Florent D'Amour, who currently finds themselves in the pit lane and will not be setting another lap time for the remainder of this session. Right. Looking like they've definitely found a better line through Crocodile on this lap. Into the final corner, staying well off of that entry curb. Does not want to have the car sliding under braking. And that has compromised their lap time slightly, but does jump ahead of Florent D'Amour with a 1:49.2. And they now go on to their final flyer of the session. There's Jens Nielsen. Another strong flyer. Actually, we'll check in quickly with Jakub Borovic. Not focused on this driver much in this session, but on a vastly improving lap time. And this could see them jump well up the order. Currently down in P15. But with that lap, puts them up to P10, so a phenomenal improvement there from Borovic. I think we're also going to see a couple of good improvements from more drivers on this final lap as the 116 car. That is Skapas is very, very sideways at the moment. As first of our improving drivers, Jens Nielsen is going to cross the line momentarily. We'll just give them a slightly firmer hold upon P3, which is not going to see them challenging the cars ahead, but it's Maya van Dijk we want to check in with a huge improvement up to P5. And that is a solid final attempt by the Danish driver. And as we finish up with our Porsche Cup cars, as Kirstein, he's got a couple of corners left to go to improve, and looks like just dropping behind the ultimate pace now. So we will check in with our our BMW M2s, and it's Callum Scotland who will be at the front of the field. And while we wait for him to complete the final couple of corners, we take a look at our standings in the BMW M2s, and it is Oscar Yaram who is leading the way. Very dominant performance in this championship, though Andre Thierry not too far behind, and the closeness of the championship not necessarily reflecting the closeness of the races we've seen so far, but either way, Thierry close in contention with Callum Scotland, Marco Lorenzon, Anthony Victor Chappelle fighting over that third spot on the championship. And then we've got Jules Flint and Leon Bromfield fighting over P6, with Carlos Jimenez, Alex Perry and Magnus Mortensen rounding out the top 10 in our standings this season. And we'll jump on board with Callum Scotland. And, well, seems quite lucky actually. He's got his initials there on the inside of his car. I don't think that is the case for everyone. Never looked at the inside of the M2 in such detail before. And let's see what these M2s can do around this Kyalami circuit. Looking like Scotland struggling for some front grip at the moment. Over the crest of the hill. Ooh, and very deep into the crocodiles goes Callum Scotland. And, well, that is off the circuit, and he will have to abort that lap. Thankfully for Scotland, these M2s don't really find their pace until a couple of laps in, especially in these wet conditions. No tyre warmers for these cars, so as Callum Scotland returns to the pit lane, we'll have to do his tyre warming all over again. As we find our championship leader. As Yaram crosses the line with a 1:59.8. Solid opening lap there from Yaram, and again we're seeing the pace from the top of our field not being matched by those further down. And do we have anyone who can challenge Oscar Yaram? Our closest at the moment is Eric Berg, only on a 2:01.3. Some 1.5 seconds off that pace set by Yaram, and that doesn't look like that car's facing the right direction. That was Lorenzo, but it's not. It's the 136 car. Who is that? That is Axel Johansson, who very carefully gets themselves back facing the right direction and gets themselves underway. As we check. See who else on our field is lapping well today. Jules Flint running a different livery tonight, running for the double yellow motorsports. He's down P3 in class with a 201.5. It's over 2/10 off of Berg. We have Anthony Victor Chappelle in P4 in class on a 201.6. Looking awfully close behind Jerem, but Jerem with a absolute class over the field at the moment and seemingly going faster as we come around the final corner, just about keeping it within track limits, and this could really see Jerem stamping their authority over this session. A 1:59.452. That we've just seen Andre Thierry post a 2 minutes and 1/10 of a second. So this is a bit closer. Still seeing about a 6/10 of a second gap between our P1 and P2 in the class, but it's not quite looking as ominous as it was previously. And we have another Nitro on the track tonight. It is Lolo Nitro, French driver for the Nitro C team. Currently sitting down in P7 in the class with 202.7. There's another gap in our order between P28 and P29 Nitro though. Finding some pace on this lap, looking to close up that gap. As we're check back in with Thierry, looking at their sector times, this could be a good lap if they can hook these last couple of sectors together. Running slightly wide of the apex up at Leeuwkup. And this is looking like a very solid lap as we head into the Crocodiles. Thierry spotting, they're braking well. Making a liberal use of that inside curb. There's 2 corners left to go. Definitely avoids the Kyalami salami. We come into the final corner. And pins the throttle to the line. This is going to be close. Just 0.05 of a second separates our top 2 drivers now. Andre Thierry bringing the fight towards Oscar Jerem onto what will be his final lap of the session. Although going deep into turn 1 is not going to help him. As Gert Odinson has jumped up into P3 in class with a 201.0. So comfortably ahead of Berg, 0.3 of a second in it at the moment. As we have a few drivers coming around to complete a flying lap. Jordi Audette. We can do the final sector now through the Crocodiles. Running somewhat wide of the apex curb there, and that is reflected in the time on this lap as they are losing the advantage they built up over this lap. Still, potential chance to jump some of the cars ahead of them, so we'll keep with Audette. They come around the final corner, running slightly deep in as well, perhaps just pushing a little harder beyond the car on this lap. We'll have one more chance at a fly as long as they fueled for it. There's Eric Berg on their way through the S's now, climbing the hill towards Leeuwkup. Jules Flint not too far ahead, shouldn't be interrupting the flow of Berg on this lap, who has about just over 0.3 per second to find if they want to challenge Odinson for P3 on our BMW M2 grid tonight. As they come around the final few corners. Well, we missed that one, but Callum Scotland's jumped themselves up to P3 at the moment. The solid final effort there from our race winner last time out. As Berg comes around the final corner, will be crossing the line very shortly. And it is just behind Jules Flint, who also jumps up into P4 in class. And we're seeing a great improvement on this lap from seeing Hamilton with a good final lap to get themselves up into P30 overall, P8 I believe that is in class. Yes it is. And that was a great final attempt from quite low down in the order earlier on in the session. And themselves P8 is a good end to their session. And that will be the end of our qualifying session. And we will be back very, very shortly as our drivers get themselves lined up on the grid for tonight's race. Reminder for those of you who might be new to the series that we have ahead for you a 30-minute race with a single mandatory pit stop. Each of our drivers is going to have to dive into the pit lane and take aboard a fixed 25-second refueling period with optional tyre change. Though with these wet conditions, I don't suspect they will be looking to change their tyres. No respite planned for the weather tonight. We will now just take you through our starting order for tonight's race. On pole position, it is the number 64 car, our championship leader, Joe Wilson. And he will be starting alongside his championship rival, as Matthew Parry. In P3 is Jens Nielsen. He'll be starting alongside Jerome Eckhart. In P5, after that phenomenal final lap, is Maya van Dijk. He'll be starting alongside John Sawyer in the 111 car. Radius Partes is in P7 alongside the 666 car of Slavek Klinger. P9 we have got our series sponsor Chris Wright turning to the track this week, and he'll be starting alongside Florent de Moor. In P11 is Jakub Borovic, and they'll be starting alongside Marek Schittel. The first of our Geordies, Jordi Navarro, is in P13, one of our many Adopt Trap drivers. And in P14 is Mark Kirstein in the car. Linux Nitro in that familiar Linux livery is starting in P15, and will be starting alongside our second Geordie and second top trap driver, that is Geordie Cano. In P17 is Jarno Briznek, they'll be starting alongside Hef Martin. Stupas Skapas is in P19 with Tom Kulich in another slightly different liveried car. That's Tom Kulich. Martin Coy is in P21, starting alongside Luke Sabato. And then we come to our BMW M2 field with Oscar Yaram starting at the front of the BMW M2s, and with Andre Thierry in P2. It is Callum Scotland starting P3 in the BMWs, with Jules Flint starting alongside them. Eric Berg is in P27 overall with Anthony Victor Chappelle. I'm not sure if they've mistakenly not set their livery tonight. And in P29 it's Gert Odinson. In P30 is Hussein Hamilton, with Michael Arminsky in P31. Slavek Klinger has returned to the pit lane, not quite sure what's happened there. Lolo Nitro is in P32 with Alex Perry in the Shrek liveried car in P33. In P34 it's Benjamin Odin Vedvik with Axel Johansson in P35. In an identical livery is Marco Lorenzon. I'm sure this won't get confusing in the race. With Truls Leven. There are 3 of them in a row with the same livery. This time it's Truls Levensklev. This is going to get very confusing later on in the race if they stay together. In P38 it's another of our top drap drivers. This time is Iban Villa. With Nicholas Max in P39. And starting from the pit lane will be Slavak Klinger. I wonder if maybe they started on the dry tyres. Possible. Would be foolish, but it is possible. We come through the final few corners. As they will slowly and shortly form up 2 by 2. As Chris Wright has a spin on the formation lap. We all saw it. Yeah, you can get yourself back into position, but we all saw that. As we come to the final corner, the drivers able to do their final bit of tyre preparation. As we wait for the green flag to wave to get this race underway here at Kyalami. And it is a good start from Joe Wilson, but Matthew Parry well alongside as we come into turn 1, as we go to the helicam, because there is bound to be turn 1 carnage here at a wet Kyalami. As it looks like our Porsche Cup field relatively cleanly through the first couple of corners. Same cannot be said for the BMW M2s, who, well, that was carnage. As our championship leader Oscar Yaram has disappeared well down the order. We'll return our attention back to the front of the Porsche Cup field, and we'll work out what happened with that carnage later. As Joe Wilson holds on to the lead ahead of Matthew Parry with Jens Nielsen and Meyer van Dijk close in behind. Meyer van Dijk able to get the jump on Jerome Eckhard in the first lap of this race. And further back we have battling as Nitro on the back of Martin Coy. And Jordi Cano getting involved in this one as they come up into Leocop. We're nearly going too wide there as we get on the throttle down the hill. As looking like Coy having a little bit of a slide there. Getting a little bit eager on the throttle. As John Sawyer up into P5, taking the position off of Eckhard as Schittel comes through as well. Round the outside, through the Crocodiles. And looking like Jordi Navarro also getting involved in this one. A lot of changes of position, and if we take a look at our BMW M2s, it is Jules Flint leading the way as it's all happening in the Porsche Cups as many people are dead. And well, let's see what happened to our series sponsor, because Chris Wright has been in the wars, the 107 car. See if we can find out what happened to him. Was coming through the first sector. Oh, and that's Florent Demore turning around Chris Wright as multiple cars off the circuit. And that is why we have got Chris Wright down in P26 trying to carve his way back through BMW M2 field. Back in with our race at the front. And Joe Wilson continuing to lead ahead of Matthew Parry, with a little bit of a gap now formed between us lead pair and Jens Nielsen down in P3, who's got Meyer van Dijk for very close company, as we see coming through the top of a Leocop. And as our race leaders come through, end of this second lap of the race. And then there's Nitro all over the back of Jordi Cano as they come through the crocodiles. And Fernandez Nitro will have the inside line as they come into the second last corner. Masterfully avoids the Kyalami Salami, which has given Jordi Cano a little bit of a respite, able to hold track position. Fernandez Nitro with a much better line through the corner should have a great run, as that is a car spinning in the background. I believe that's Kirstein dropping down the order now. As we've got side by side in the background, there's Hef Martin coming up the inside of Pulisic, I think. Sorry. As they're round as well. I think that's both of the cars we've seen having very similar incidents. Perhaps their team setup isn't the one to be driving tonight. Down in the BMW M2s, Anthony Victor-Chappelle with some early race damage by the looks of things, looking to pick their way through just up past the other of the Nitro cars and up into P3 in class behind Ominski and Flint. As we now have, I was going to say we have complete separation of the BMWs and Porsches, but nope, Sabato, Eckhart and Partes all still caught up in this BMW M2 traffic and are going to have to pick their way through the rest of the field. As we're seeing close racing here, as Odinson looking up the inside, as Gert Odinson up the inside of Nitro and up into P4, but off the circuit and into the wall. I think I spoke a little too soon for that one. As they get themselves safely, I hope, back underway. We will check back in with our lead duo as they find themselves now 3.6 seconds clear of Jens Nielsen in P3. Joe Wilson and Matthew Parry pushing each other hard in this race. And now into the first corner. As Martin Coy into the pit lane with an early pit stop. It's 5 minutes into this race. We'll likely see them emerge into the BMW traffic, so might not be the most comfortable of outlaps for Coy. As we've got a battle over P10. Laurent Demore got the inside of Hef Martin. Both running slightly deep into the corner. And Florent Demore all over the rear of the car ahead. As there's Nitro having to ease on the throttle, coming back on from the grass, nearly obstructing the way of Hef Martin as they come now into the S's. Laurent Demore trying to get that splitter up under that diffuser by the looks of things. As Florent Demore tries to open up the corner, going for the better run down through the mineshaft. And this could be a good opportunity here for Florent Demore, as giving themselves the better exit. Holds the inside through the mineshaft. It should be fully ahead before the crocodiles, but Hef Martin not letting this one go, has managed to get their car to the inside. Florent Demore outside the track limits, and Hef Martin keeps the position. We see Jens Nielsen dive into the pit lane nice and early as well. Chris Wright is now battling his way through the field as well. He's got himself up the inside of Kurish and up into P17 as we've got more and more drivers diving into the pit lane. There's another driver picking their way through the field is Slavek Klinger, getting involved in that early race incidents. Now up to P14. Actually, will be P13 momentarily if they can get this move stuck. And well, don't need to get the move stuck so much as Borovic goes for an off-track excursion and allows both Klinger and Kirstein through. And looks like Florent Demore has made their way past F. Martin. Let's see if we can catch how this one came about. Up the inside, and in the end, fairly straightforward there for the French driver. as Frontemore finds themselves now up into P9. And Joe Wilson now. Actually, apologies, we've missed this one. We've had a change of the lead. Matthew Parry has made their way past Joe Wilson for the lead of the race. And nope, there was no contact involved, so unfortunately I'm not sure exactly when that happened. But now Joe Wilson with some work to do. There's Matthew Parry with the fastest lap of the race. Slavic Klinger tumbling down the order. I'm not sure what's happened. Oh, as I think my timing tower is going slightly funky. Has there been a big old incident? Let's see if we can find what's happened. Oh, and there is a car stopped on track, and then that's a BMW round. Oh, that is, yeah, that explains why we've got a few drivers out of position. As we return to our battle up at the front of the field. There's Matthew Parry ahead of Joe Wilson as we hit the back of the BMW traffic. Matthew Parry's picked his way through. Joe Wilson also through on the first of the BMWs. And both Joe Wilson and Matthew Parry diving into the pit lane together, nose to tail. They come into the pit lane. This is going to be the battle of the pit stops here. Who can get it stopped in their box the most efficiently? And we will check in with that one soon, as they're both now stopped in their box. We've got Florent de Moors now caught up to the back of Felinez Nitro. As they come down towards the first corner, Nitro taking a defensive inside line, but de Moor not giving this one up as they go side by side through the first corner. Florent de Moors up into P6, and I suspect Joe Wilson out well ahead of Matthew Parry. Matthew Parry with a 33-second stop in the box. I think an unintentional change of tyres. Or perhaps an intentional change of tyres, I don't know. Perhaps wrong pressures. I'm thinking their tyres are overworn, but well, we'll see how this plays into the rest of the race. As Matthew Parry finds themselves now actually down in net P3 behind Jens Nielsen. And this has not worked out for them at all, with now a over 6-second gap to Joe Wilson. As Borovic having a little bit of a slide all on their own into the wall, and has thankfully not collected any of our front running drivers. And Matthew Parry making short work of Nielsen. Now got themselves back with just clean air between themselves and Joe Wilson, but it is a gap of 6 seconds now. As we're checking with our BMW M2 field for a while, as not been so much coverage of their battle, as we've got Andre Thierry after an early race incident fighting their way past Minsky, who looks like they've also found themselves in an incident at some point. Neither of those cars looking like they're in the best of conditions. There's more and more drivers now diving off into the pit lane. We've got Briznik, Van Dijk and Martin all in pit road together. And still Arminsky and Thierry going side by side through the S's as they both catching up to Ardet ahead. And Thierry, I was going to say up into P23 overall, but has now gone straight off the circuit and allows Arminsky straight back through, and will now find themselves under pressure from Chappelle. Back with the M2s, Tom Coolish is with Kirstein, the two cars together on circuit, and have got Chris Wright now quickly bearing down on them as Kirstein taking a bumpy route across the curbs. Now got their teammate in very close proximity. There's now, we're seeing pit stops from some of our BMW M2 drivers. We'll check in to see where they emerge out on track, as I believe Jules Flint is still our net race leader in the M2 class. As Joe Wilson catching up this battle as well. As Chris Wright dives off into the pit lane, allows Joe Wilson through. And what has happened to Matthew Parrott, still going okay, is now 4.5 seconds behind Joe Wilson. Last time around it was a 1:48.9. Joe Wilson is a 1:48.0 from Matthew Parry. I'm not sure if that is due to the traffic, of which Joe Wilson has an absolute S-ton to contend with at the moment. But Matthew Parry bearing down. There's Joe Wilson. It's the inside from Coolish. Barely avoiding the BMW ahead. Matthew Parry still got to pick his way through this as well, but is now just 3 seconds off the back of Joe Wilson. And getting a much easier time of the traffic, it does seem. No wonder if these pressure tyres on this damp circuit are really paying dividends for Joe Wilson. For Matthew Parry. Joe Wilson. Well, hopefully soon we'll see an uninterrupted lap for the pair of them, where we can really see what their overall pace is. But looking good so far. Oh, as that is a car off the circuit. It's one of the cars who gets themselves spin turned back around. I think that is I don't know who that is. Must be Coolish. As Florent D'Amour yet again going for the long opening stint now leads this race. And Matthew Parry now 4 seconds back from Joe Wilson, who has got Kirstein to clear. Makes his way through the first corner, now through the first sector. And well, that is not what Joe Wilson was hoping for. And to dice his way through the traffic. There's a gap now between Parry and Wilson, now at about 3 seconds. He's behind this. John Sawyer, who's made his mandatory pit stop, is up behind Kirstein, yet to make their pit stop. And that is Callum Scotland and Oscar Yaram just behind. Has Yaram made their mandatory pit stop? They have. So Yaram carving their way through the field after that early race incident, now up onto the back of Kyalami, Scotland. Once they clear Scotland, it's just Flint up ahead, so this has been a great recovery drive from Oscar Yaram. But I don't think Scotland is going to want to let their championship rival through. As John has made it through, as Kulish bouncing around, as that's a car stopped on the outside of the Crocodiles. I'm not sure who that is, but that's a Minsky who's causing some absolute chaos. And that is Matt Schittel hitting the back of Arminsky's car, who really, if they're going to stop, should be stopping off of the racing circuit. And was that Jules Flint I just saw spinning into the wall behind? I think that was for the race lead. This is giving up the race lead here from Jules Flint. Just a little over-eager on the throttle, round into the wall. And Oscar Yaram will be seeing that one and saying thank you very much, as he finds himself back in the lead of this BMW M2 race. This race here at Kyalami proving to be absolute pure chaos. As what we're seeing, I think there are more cars with damage than cars without at this stage in the race. So it looks like just about everyone is carrying some sort of ailment. As we can see there, the bonnet gap for Scotland, for Schittel, for Flint. As Frank de Moore gets them their way past Borovic. What has happened? Oh, Borovic is still going strong. Okay. We check back in with our race leaders, and that gap now sitting at 2.3 seconds. With last laps for Wilson and Parry. There's a 1:48.5 for Wilson, 1:47.9 for Parry as they cross the line this time around. It's a 1:48.7 for Wilson, 1:48.0 for Parry. So this gap coming down slowly but surely. With 9 minutes remaining of this race, gives us enough time for 5 more laps. This could be close, and remains to be seen whether Matthew Parry will still have the tyres, still have that performance edge when he gets onto the back of our race leader. As we've got yet more chaos down in P7 of our Porsche Cup race. Marek Schittel ahead of Jordi Navarro. Navarro looking like one of our few cars without damage, and should mean they can make short work of Marek Schittel, who looks like their car is out there trying to catch flies at the moment. As we come upon our race leader in the BMW M2 class. Chappelle still yet to pit from the lead of the M2 class. A 39-second gap back to Yaram. So will likely come out behind, but remains to be seen how far behind they will come out. As Navarro and Schittel carving their way through the S's, and we've got yellow flags out again, this time for car number 71. That is Callum Scotland, who was finding themselves running in net P2 in this race, is now having an absolutely torrid time of it. And that's stopped in the final corner. And that can be an awful place to try and get going again around this race circuit. There's Jordi Navarro in the wheel tracks. Schittel up ahead. They carve their way through the final couple of corners. 7 minutes left to go of this race, and Schittel's going to have his work cut out if he wants to hold on ahead of Navarro. As Navarro gets an absolute handful of wheel spin coming out the final corner. That will give a little bit of breathing room to Navarro. They come down Start finish straight through the kink. Just checking with that gap at the front. 1.4 seconds. The gap now between Joe Wilson and Matthew Parry. It is coming down lap by lap. Matthew Parry already made one overtake for the lead in this race. Is looking like they're lining up to do another before this race is over. It's down in P14. We have got Borovic, Martin and Eckhart all together on circuit as they come across more back marker traffic. It will be Borovic the first to show his nose to the BMWs, as a great move there from Eckhart getting through on Martin up into P15, or now it's 16 as they go door to door through Sunset and finally getting themselves clear of the BMW traffic. That is Jules Flint there. I was not sure if there's been a mistake on this lap from Matthew Parry. That gap now opened up to 2.2 seconds. Has there been some traffic to contend with? There has, so looks like that gap ebbing and flowing as they make their way through the traffic at this stage in the race. Just 5 minutes remaining now, and currently Joe Wilson keeping this gap comfortable as Martin Coy having a little bit of an incident there. All coming through the crocodiles, and well, I think that must have been scary for Jordi Cano. They're back underway, didn't go spearing off into a wall, so not too bad for Martin Coy, as Jerome Eckhart looking to make their way past Eka Borovic. Right in the slipstream now, should have an opportunity to make a move as we head down towards turn 1. Eckhart moving out of this toe, but didn't catch by much down that straight, but looking like Borovic going too deep into the corner, and that's allowed Eckhart through up into P14. Borovic, reminder, still yet to pit, so we'll see themselves tumbling down the order, perhaps not wanting to fight too hard with these cars that aren't really in their race. Does look like that charge from Matthew Parry has somewhat stalled now at this point in the race. That gap holding at about 2.5 seconds. Last laps around, Joe Wilson a 148.8, 148.9 for Matthew Parry. They are though picking their way still through the traffic, so every chance for something to come the way of Matthew Parry. Just needs to keep at it, keep his head down, keep pushing. We've seen he's got good pace with the new tyres he's put on that car. Let's just see if he can extract it before this race is over. Also picking their way through the pack is Chris Wright up into P16 now, making that move on Borovic. And is now the next target up the road is Hef Martin. As Borovic seems to be taking the longest possible line around this racing circuit as he traces his way around the outside. We'll have to dive into the pits now. I hope he does, otherwise he's going to see himself picking up a penalty. And Borovic, I think he stayed out. Borovic, you do not have enough time to get around to the pits. That is going to be a penalty for you, sir. Same for Chappelle. Not sure if Chappelle has quite realised that they have yet to pit. Still 1 minute 16. Yes, they might just about have enough time to get round to the pits. Well, it's going to be close for Chappelle. They really need to hope they don't get into any sort of incident on this lap, otherwise they're going to be picking up a penalty. As Jordi Navarro still stuck to the back of Marek Chatil, has yet to find a way through. Chris Wright all over the back of Hef Martin. Going to the outside through Leocop. He's going to try and keep it pinned. Would have the better run out of the corner as they come down the hill. Eckhard not far ahead either. These two battling hard as Chappelle has made it around to the pit lane. As the pit window will be closing in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that is a penalty coming the way of Jakub Borovic. As Jordi Navarro still trying to find a way past Chatel. I'm not sure if Borovic just accepting their fate there and deciding not to pit at all in this race. Yep, it looks like they're just not going to pit. They're usually the last to pit, but this time they're taking it a bit too far. Martin Curry is all over the back of Jordi Canno. And as our race leaders are now on to the final lap of this race, Joe Wilson ahead of Matthew Parry. Joe Wilson getting a slightly easy line there through those BMW M2 back markers and looking like he's got a relatively clear track ahead of him. This should be a straightforward bring it home for Joe Wilson. So that's actually the BMW battle there, the battle for P3 in class. As Jules Flint battling with Anthony Victor Chappelle. Chappelle's late pit stop working out wonders for them as Jules Flint having yet another incident. This time, well, equaling out the damage on their car. Now it's a broken front and a broken rear on that BMW, and Jules Flint has now lost the opportunity to go and take P3 as we've got Jordi Navarro and Marit Chatil going side by side, and Navarro, I think, will have this move made and is up into P7 on the racetrack. And that move has been a long time coming, but Chatil does not want to give this one up. As we check back in with them later on. But Joe Wilson rounding the final corner here at Kyalami takes the win. There's a strong start to the race from Matthew Parry, who I think is somewhat frustrated. I'm not sure if they intended to pit, but has put themselves into the wall, obviously frustrated. Not sure, as I say, they intended to change those tyres, but in the end, could not catch back up to Joe Wilson and have to make do with P2 in this race. In P4 will be John Sawyer, followed by Maya Van Dijk with a strong race in the end. Bring it home in P5. Laurent de Moore with a considerably damaged car has recovered to bring it home in P6. With Navarro on line in P7. And P8 just behind is Marit Chatil. Nitro across the line in P9, and finally rounding out the top 10 will be Jordi Canno. And with our top two in the BMWs still yet to finish the race, Oscar Yaram and Andre Thierry, we can however report that Anthony Victor Chappelle took P3 with Jordi Yodet in P4, Flint P5, Berg in P6, Perry in P7, Hamilton P8, and Lorenzo in P9, and Vedvik in P10. Bring it around the final corner now with a phenomenal recovery drive. Oscar Yaram, in the first race incident that put them near to the back of the field, has come to take the class lead, and they'll be followed by Andre Thierry in P2 in class. And congratulations to our podium finishers in both classes. That is in the Porsche Cups, Joe Wilson, Matthew Parry and Jens Nielsen. And in the BMW M2s is Oscar Yaram, Andre Thierry and Anthony Victor Chappelle. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I've been your host, Roy Waller. And please do make sure you head on over to pitskill.io to get yourselves signed up to all of our races and get yourself on track straight away in the GT3 dailies, and then get yourself your C license to be in this Porsche Cup and BMW M2 multi-class. Also, while you're there, do check out when we are streaming any of our other events, as we do have our flagship series coming on Wednesday. That is our GT3 Elite, where the best of the best at Pitskill will be duking it out. And then come back here same time next week, when on Monday the 2nd of September we will be heading to the Hungaroring. And until next time, all remains for me to say is thank you again for watching. If you do enjoy these streams, do make sure you like and subscribe. It really does help us out, get Pitskill seen by more people, get more people onto these grids. But until next time, I will leave you with the highlights from tonight's race. Good night.